Hi everyone and welcome back. In today's video, I want to talk to you about the low FODMAP diet, which is often the go-to approach when you have IBS. And specifically, I want to talk about the risks which are associated with eating this way, which many people aren't aware of and can really do you harm if you're not careful. So in this video, I'm going to run through 7 of the risks which I see when I work with clients who've experienced them. And as I go through, you may even have experienced these yourself firsthand if you've gone down the low FODMAP approach in trying to get your IBS symptoms back under control. Now, if you're new here and we haven't met yet, my name is Jane Corner. I'm a psychotherapist and wellness coach, and I specialize in using gut-directed hypnotherapy and CBT with my clients. I've been working with IBS clients now for about 4 years, and in that time, I've personally witnessed some incredible transformations as we calm down their digestive system and get things working as they should. But when my clients first start working with me, it's a completely different story, and their IBS symptoms can be severe and debilitating. I would also say that about 95% of them had been trying to manage their symptoms by removing and reducing FODMAPs before going through a program of gut-directed hypnotherapy. And many who went down the low FODMAP route experienced a lot of negative side effects, especially those that stayed on the diet for a longer period of time. Now, at the end of this video, I'm also going to be sharing with you a key factor which you need to be focusing on instead when it comes to the food you're eating. So definitely make sure you watch until the end. Now, before I go any further into this week's video, I do want to preference with what I'm about to say is that you must always seek dietary advice from a qualified healthcare professional, whether that's a nutritionist, a naturopath, or your GP. I also want to add that restrictive diets can be a useful tool in helping to initially calm down the gut when you're suffering with IBS. But, and here's the but, they can also keep you stuck and exacerbate your symptoms, and unfortunately you can end up with more issues than when you started. So with all that said, let me take you through the 7 risks which you need to be weighing up when deciding if the low FODMAP diet is for you and the best way to manage your IBS symptoms. Okay, so the first risk I want to cover here is that changes can happen inside of your gut, specifically changes inside of the gut microbiome when you remove FODMAPs from your diet. Now, your gut microbiome is made up of trillions, literally trillions of microorganisms that live in your intestinal tract. Now, these microorganisms mainly comprise of bacteria and are involved in functions which are critical to your health and well-being. In fact, some of these processes inside of your body that they are involved with include your digestion, your metabolism, your immune system, as well as supporting your brain function, and can also alter your mood. So having a healthy gut microbiome is very, very important. So you therefore need to be aware that if you start taking out FODMAP foods from your diet, such as legumes and lentils, you're actually also taking out a key source of what we call prebiotics. And prebiotics are a form of dietary fiber that actually feed the good bacteria in your gut. So the longer you stay on a FODMAP diet or a low FODMAP diet, the greater the risk of creating a change in your gut microbiome, which can impact your health on a number of levels. In fact, a study in 2020 looked at the role of the low FODMAP diet on the gut microbiome and suggested that to ensure a healthy balance of good bacteria in your gut, you need to be taking, or you should be taking, probiotics at the same time. So now let's look at the second risk, and this is the risk of not eating a healthy, balanced diet. Now, unfortunately, when you do eat a low FODMAP diet, it means you end up avoiding a fairly wide range of food, which can lead you missing out on some key nutrients. The main ones that a lot of people miss out on would be things like fiber, calcium, iron, and B12. Now, of course, you can absolutely take supplements if you identify a deficiency, But the very best way to get nutrients is from your food. So always make sure that you're not eliminating more foods than necessary. Now, the third risk here is a very real issue around disordered eating behaviors. And this comes from the increase in focus that you have on what you're eating and in the stress and anxiety a lot of people feel around mealtimes and when eating certain amounts of food. Basically, you start becoming afraid of food and you get fearful of reintroducing foods back in due to worries and fears that you have over what may happen with your symptoms. Will you get a flare-up? Will you be doubled over in pain all afternoon? Will you be back to square one? Stress and anxiety around food mean that you end up being stuck with a really small, limited amount of foods that you can actually eat. In fact, I worked with one client who was pretty much living on lettuce leaves and steamed broccoli because she was so afraid to eat anything else in case her symptoms came back and she got a flare-up. Fear around food is something I see all the time with clients who have been following restrictive diets. But once we get the digestive system calmed down and everything back under control, I also help them to lose the fear and get back to eating what they love. Whether that's being able to order the gluten option off a menu or be able to order foods without all those what if thoughts and all that anxiety going through their head. So this leads us on to risk number 4, and this is a pretty simple one. Eating low FODMAP is just plain stressful and overwhelming. Restrictive diets in themselves can create a lot of stress and overwhelm due to figuring out what you can eat and what to cook. I hear from clients all the time of them wandering down the supermarket aisles, kind of cross-eyed and double checking every ingredient on the back of packets and constantly asking themselves, can I eat this? Is this low FODMAP? This is also a real issue if you're the one that's cooking for your children and partner and where you have to eat differently from everybody else. And speaking of symptoms, let's now talk about the 5th risk, which you really need to be aware of when deciding if the low FODMAP is an approach that's right for you. And this is basically an increase in what we call hypervigilance, which in other words is an increase in alertness. Now, this happens when you become hyper-focused on the food that you eat and question everything you're putting into your mouth. You're also likely to be hyper-focused on what's happening inside of your gut and constantly on the lookout for symptoms. Now, unfortunately, the more you become focused on watching out for signs of a reaction or a flare-up, so being really hypersensitive to any sensations in the gut, you actually magnify what's happening inside of the body, and the slightest twinge can send you off into a panic. This then in turn dials up that anxiety dial and can even trigger the very flare-up you're hoping to avoid. This can then leave you questioning whether it was the food that triggered the reaction or the anxiety that flared up your IBS. And of course, all this confusion and frustration then flows into different areas of your life, including your social life. And this is the 6th risk that I really want to talk about, and the impact of eating low FODMAP on what you can say yes to in your life and how you feel when you're out with friends and out with your family. It basically means that a lot of joyful and fun events like weddings and social gatherings can create a sense of dread inside of you, especially when there's a set menu in place. Eating around FODMAPs on a menu can be emotionally taxing and stressful. And I hear from clients that I work with many times that they found it easier to say no and stay at home than risk saying yes and either feeling embarrassed about their gut issues and their IBS and the restricted range of food they can eat, or worried that they'll just have to eat something that they shouldn't so they don't go hungry. So let me know what questions you have or comments you'd like to share down below this video, and let's have a conversation about this. Does any of this resonate with you? Perhaps you've tried the low FODMAP diet or you're currently on it and you're experiencing these issues firsthand. Okay, so we've got one more risk that I want to talk to you about in this video, and that's the risk of using the low FODMAP diet as something we call a safety crutch. And what this means is that it's far too easy to stay on this restrictive diet because you either believe it's your only option or you're just too fearful to do anything different. And this in turn can compound the 6 other reasons and the risks that I've covered. So what should you be doing instead? Now, for some people, cutting out foods for a limited amount of time can help to calm the gut down. But if you're finding that either restrictive diets just aren't helping, or you're stuck with reintroducing foods back in, either due to anxiety or due to a flare-up of gut symptoms, then you may want to explore a different approach to getting long-term relief from IBS. Because when it comes to IBS, unless you've been diagnosed with a food intolerance or an allergy, then food is likely not going to be the culprit behind your symptoms. You see, at its heart, IBS is what we call a functional disorder of the brain-gut connection, which means there's no physical issue with your bowel, despite how it may seem and how it feels. Now, instead, the issue lies with the function of your gut, specifically the connection between your gut and your brain, which is just no longer working as it should. And it's this communication or miscommunication that is likely responsible for your symptoms. So instead of drastically changing your diet, you need to address the factors which are impacting upon this communication. And one of these factors which I teach my clients inside of my programs is understanding the pattern between what they eat, when they eat, and their levels of stress and anxiety. Because what we tend to find is that when you are relaxed and feeling calm, you can actually eat many different types of foods and have no reaction in your gut. But as soon as you start feeling stressed or anxious and then eat, IBS symptoms return and can flare up. This is why taking steps to reduce the level of stress and anxiety you have specifically around mealtimes is such a crucial step in turning your IBS around. So if you're interested to learn more about how I work with clients inside of my programs for IBS, I'll post the link just down below this video, so make sure you go and check that out. I'll also include a link below to my free ultimate guide to reducing painful IBS flare-ups. And in this guide, you'll be able to go deeper into understanding your IBS symptoms and understand what's really going on inside of your gut. I hear from people all the time who've downloaded this guide that it has really helped to remove a lot of the confusion and anxiety around their symptoms. So definitely make sure you go and get your copy. And of course, if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and go ahead and subscribe to my channel for more videos on helping you take back control of your IBS. Thank you as always for joining me in this week's video, and I will see you in the next one.